وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us many bounties in this life. One of those great and immense bounties is the bounty of health. And like many other favors of Allah, like many other virtues and bounties, we don't realize their value until they are either endangered or they're lost. The conversations today are by and large around an epidemic which has affected many parts of the world at a rate and pace that is unprecedented in the history of humanity. Never before has a disease spread so quickly and rapidly and to so many different parts of the world, threatening so many different populations all at once. Our deen, just like it has clear teachings on all the areas of life, including the difficult ones, it also has teachings in relation to this. So where do we begin our discussion on diseases and epidemics such as the coronavirus? The discussion begins with our belief. What is our belief regarding sickness and health? As Muslims, we believe that all bounties come only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like we were taught in the dua of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma ma asbaha bi min ni'matin فَمِنْكَ وَحْدَكَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَكَ فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ وَلَكَ الشُّكْرُ. Any ni'mah that I have, O Allah, it's coming only from you, exclusively from you. To you is all praise, and to you are all thanks. We also know that, generally speaking, and broadly speaking, all things of benefit come from Allah. Allah is an-nafi'. Similarly, anything of harm, it also comes from Allah, and it is in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is ad-dar. So nafa' and darar, benefit and harm, are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Granted, we live in a world of cause and effect. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created that world. He is the one who has created the causes, and He controls the effects. And He has not created all causes the same. There are some causes that are almost certain, such as somebody who jumps off a high-rise building. It's almost certain that they're going to die. This was the cause, and the effect is almost certain. Then there are causes that are highly probable. Then there are those that are likely. And then there are those that are uncertain. 50% chance of having an effect and 50% chance of not having an effect. Then there are those that are unlikely. Then those that are improbable. And those that are almost certainly not possible. Like this, all the causes and effects in this world, in this physical world, can be placed on this scale. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed us in that world where we have to deal with these causes, what we call asbab, and their effects, which are the nata'ij or the musabbabat. The general rule for everyone is that if you use beneficial causes, beneficial means, then you will have benefit as an outcome. If you use harmful causes or means, you will have harmful effects as an outcome. This is the general rule for this world, and all human beings are bound by it. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reserves control over those asbab. If He wants, He can carry out the effects with those asbab, with those means. If He wants, He can carry out the effects without those means. And if He wants, He can carry out those effects against those means. Those means are a system that Allah has created, but He alone can overrule that system when He wants, how He wants. Like He did through the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wassalam, all of the things that we refer to as mu'jizat, this is Allah overruling the system that He has put in place to show that He in fact is in control and the power lies in His hands to give, to take, to make things happen or to not make things happen. So this is our overarching belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately controls all benefit and harm. The second thing is, as I mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created causes or means, if you want to call them. He has created means and He has created the outcomes of those means. He has put us into a world that is very much impacted by these means and their effects. Our responsibility is to use the means that He has created for us, for our benefit, and not just use them, but to use them in the way that He has prescribed. So one way of defining Islam and Deen is to use the things that Allah has given human beings in the way that He has prescribed. So moving towards something like sickness, we understand, we don't need to go into much detail, that sickness and health are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created some asbab for sickness and some asbab for health. As human beings and as Muslims, we are required to use the asbab, the means of health, to the best of our ability. As much as we have available and accessible to us, we're responsible for using those. We're also responsible for abstaining from the asbab, the causes or the means of harm, of illness, or of danger. We need to abstain from them to the best of our ability. Will that guarantee anything for us? No, it will not guarantee, because we already believe that my job is to do what I can do, but the results lie exclusively with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are people who are doing everything right for their health. They're eating healthy, they're getting enough sleep, they're staying hydrated, they're getting exercise, they're living in a nice clean environment, they're doing all the right things, but they get inflicted with some kind of a dangerous or a terminal illness. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing us that He is in control. You can do what you can, but ultimately Allah decides what happens. And similarly, there are people that are being born and raised in very poor conditions. Children being born and raised in slums, where there is dirt and filth all around them all the time. There's disease and bacteria, starvation and malnutrition, all kinds of things, but they're healthy, they're fine, they're doing well. But our job is to stay the course, to use the beneficial means in the way Allah has prescribed. Like the person who asked the Prophet ﷺ in regards to tawakkul, trust, that should I tie my camel and put my trust in Allah, or should I leave my camel and put my trust in Allah? So the Prophet ﷺ told him, you tie it and then you place your trust in Allah. Because if you don't tie it, you don't use the means that are available and accessible to you, then you will go and blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for taking your camel away. Say, oh Allah, I entrusted it with you and you took it away. So similarly, for us to be careless about our health and say, no, I'm just doing tawakkul, this is not in light of Islamic teachings. We'll get into this in a little bit more detail. Epidemics are something that the Prophet ﷺ told us about, that this is going to happen in my ummah. There will be widespread plagues and diseases. And Sahaba radiallahu anhum asked him that, are these going to be a punishment from Allah? So the Prophet ﷺ told us that they will be a mercy of Allah for the believers, for those who are obedient. And there will be a punishment for those who are disobedient. Because if a person leaves this world obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing all the right things, and by the taqdeer of Allah, at their appointed time, they are taken from this world, under any circumstance, they have succeeded, and the occasion of their death will be a mercy for them. And someone who is disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if they leave this world hale and hearty and healthy, well, we believe that they have left this world as a failure. So dying healthy is not a sign of success, and dying out of an illness is not a sign of a failure. Rather, it's what we have in our heart in terms of faith and beliefs, what we're doing with our lives, our time, what we're doing with the people around us. This will decide whether we leave this world successful or having failed. In the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, a plague broke out. Umar radiallahu anhu at that time was traveling to Sham, and that's the area where the plague broke out. So the area that is referred to as Jordan and Syria, this place was very seriously affected by this plague. It started in a town called Amwas, so it was named Ta'un Amwas, the plague of Amwas. So Umar radiallahu anhu had already decided a trip there to look after the affairs of the Muslims. When he came close to the main area where he was going to meet his commanders, Sahaba radiallahu anhum came out to meet him and greet him. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah radiallahu anhu, who was in charge of the Muslim armies of that region, Abu Talha radiallahu anhu, these and other Sahaba came to meet Umar radiallahu anhu, and they informed him that a plague has broken out. So he said that, what do you advise? They said, we advise you, you have some of the most important people with you from amongst the Muslims, you have some of the most important companions of Rasulullah ﷺ with you. We advise you to go back and not proceed any further. He said, I'm not going to do that until I consult the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ. So he gathered the Muhajirin, whoever was there from amongst the Muhajirin, those who had migrated to Medina in the time of Rasulullah ﷺ. He gathered them and he said, this is a situation, what do you suggest? They said that you must go back. Then he gathered the Ansar. He asked them the same thing. They also said, we suggest you go back. Then he gathered the old Sahaba, those who had accepted Islam right in the beginning with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He asked them, they said, you need to go back. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, look, everyone has given the same view, so now I'm thinking maybe we should go back. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, who was also stationed there, had gone for something. In the meantime, he came back and he saw all of this discussion and consultation. When he was updated that this is the discussion that's happening, he said, "Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, I have ilm about this from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." He said, "Tell me." He said, "I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that if a plague inflicts an area, some kind of a disease, an epidemic inflicts an area, then those who are there must not leave. And those who are not there must not enter that area. So if you're not there, then don't go there. If you are there, then don't leave there." So then Umar radiallahu anhu praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah had given him tawfiq to make the right decision, and just on time he received that hadith from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam instructing him to do the exact same thing. So he went back. Now there's a very lengthy discussion in books of hadith and fiqh regarding the movements of travelers, especially when an epidemic breaks out. The first place where this is mentioned is the Quran itself. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ خَرَجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ وَهُمْ أُلُوفٌ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ فَقَالَ لَهُمُ اللَّهُ مُوتُوا ثُمَّ أَحْيَاهُمْ. There were a group of people, 4,000, some Mufassirin say there were at least 10,000. They left from their area. Many Mufassirin agree that there was a plague, an epidemic that had broken out, and they ran. They tried to flee from that area. To save themselves from that disease, Allah gave the command, "Mutu." All of you must die. They all died. And that's when Hizqeel alayhi salam passed by. He saw all of these dead bodies. He said, "Oh Allah, bring them back to life." How can you bring people back to life? He had this discussion and dua with Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought them back to life. So that was to teach people a lesson that, look, if an epidemic has broken out, you don't flee from that area. You stay where you are. This was the view of most Sahaba radiallahu anhum. There was a small group of Sahaba, like Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, and a few others who said that if you are leaving for the sake of treatment, it is allowed. If you are leaving that area for the sake of getting treated, it is allowed. But the majority of the Sahaba, they said that no, the instructions from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam are very clear. How does this pertain to us? How does this relate to us? It's obvious. We are in a situation where there is an epidemic that is spreading exponentially every single day in every part of the world that it has affected. So some experts are saying it's doubling every 6 days. Its rate of spreading is that every 6 days it doubles. And some are saying that every 2 weeks it's multiplying 10 times in some areas. So it is what it is. We don't know what the situation will be, and there's no need to panic either. And this, one of the great things about Iman is that it keeps you grounded, it keeps you calm. This is the taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Umar radiallahu anhu was about to leave, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah radiallahu anhu came to him and asked, even though he was the first one to suggest that you should go back. He said, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I want to know, what are your thoughts right now? Are you fleeing from the taqdeer of Allah? He said, Umar then replied, I am running from the taqdeer of Allah to the taqdeer of Allah. What's going to happen to us here is also muqaddar. And what's going to happen to us when we get back is also muqaddar. I am merely carrying out the instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I would like to meet the taqdeer of Allah, fulfilling the command of His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, a few things for us to keep in mind in regards to looking after ourselves. Hygiene is a part of our deen. Hygiene protects us. We are the first people to know that. We introduced these concepts to the world. So we don't compromise our hygiene now. People are talking about washing our hands and make sure they're sanitized and make sure. All of this is fine, it should be done. What about mixing with people? If there is someone who feels that they may be inflicted with this, then they are to stay away from healthy people. The hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says very clearly, hadith of Bukhari and Muslim, لا يورد ممرض على مصح ولا مصح على ممرض. If someone is sick, they should not be brought to go into the middle of healthy people. If someone's healthy, he should not be made to go and stay amongst the sick people. So what is this thing of disease spreading? Do we believe that disease spreads on its own? No. We believe that disease is from the asbab, like we talked about. On that scale, different types of diseases fit on different places in that scale. By itself, the disease does not have the ability to spread. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can allow it to spread because it has the potential to spread. When we get sick, it's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared it and decreed it for us. Okay? But it is our responsibility to protect ourselves to the best of our ability. So if someone is sick, they should not go into public congregations. If it's a question of Jumu'ah, for example, the sick person who is ma'adhur, this person is already exempt from Jumu'ah. They don't need to come and they don't need to feel bad about it. They don't need to come to the masjid to pray their salawat. They can pray at home, and this term that's being used, self-isolation, there's nothing wrong with it. It's very good. But if people are healthy and there is no threat, then there is no harm in coming and in congregating and so on and so forth. Now, what will happen is with time, just like is happening in various parts of the world, governments are stepping in, different levels of governments and countries are stepping in and introducing measures and regulations to keep this thing under control. So for example, in some countries, congregations larger than 250 people are not allowed. So we're telling the people in those countries that you should abide by those. If you want to have Jumu'ah, have it, but keep the numbers under 250 people. There are some that have gone even further and they've banned congregations altogether because of the level of threat in those areas is higher. Alhamdulillah, we're not quite there yet. But we need to keep our eyes and ears open to the measures that are being introduced, and we need to follow them. There is nothing wrong with those measures. And we will not get any reward for rebelling against those. If, let's just say, as is happening in certain countries as we speak, there is no Jumu'ah. This week there is no Jumu'ah, they've cancelled it. If such a situation comes where congregations are stopped altogether, then what should we do for Jumu'ah? In that case, What the fuqaha are saying is that we should get together in small groups, in 3s and 4s, in houses, in offices, in small places, but still keep offering Jumu'ah. Don't default to Salat al-Dhuhr. Don't default to Salat al-Dhuhr. Try to pray Jumu'ah. Jumu'ah is very simple. The khutbah can be very short. It can be 2 minutes long. You read some hamd and thana, some salawat on Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, read a few ayats of the Quran, sit down, read the next khutbah, again some hamd and thana, make some dua, that's it. Khutbah doesn't have to be long. As long as if there are 3 people, according to most ayyimah, if there are 3 people, and the 4th one is leading, this is enough for Jumu'ah. So if our situation evolves to this, we don't know, then this should be the next course of action. Don't default to just praying your dhuhr 4 rak'ats in place of your Jumu'ah. The other thing is, we should keep an eye out for the travel advisories. Where are our movements allowed and to where are our movements not allowed? We need to respect those things. And if we have travel arrangements in place and there is no ban, we should still use our own discretion and not go to those places. Like the hadith is saying, we don't go to places where there is an epidemic, where there is a threat of us being inflicted. And if a situation arises where it becomes widespread, then we need to abide by the teachings of our deen. We don't create an environment of fleeing, that we're trying to escape, because the Quran calls out those people who try to escape that decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, we will take as strict measures as we can. We will use whatever facilities that we have in terms of medical facilities, in terms of whatever we have at our disposal to try to protect ourselves and try to keep ourselves away from this to the best of our ability, and the rest is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What matters more than living and dying is how we live and how we die. If we leave this world with the kalima on our lips and in our hearts, then we have succeeded. And none of us can go before our fixed time. None of us is going to go before their fixed time. So if it's going to come, I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah radiyallahu anhu, the one who greeted Umar radiyallahu anhu, he got inflicted by the ta'un, by that plague. Umar radiyallahu anhu sent him some instructions. Initially Umar radiyallahu anhu tried to get him to come, to get out of there because he needed him. Abu Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu responded in a very polite way that, no, I need to stay here, my armies are here, this and this and this. Then Umar radiyallahu anhu said, move your people to another area, that area is not good. So move the whole population to another town. He suggested Jabiyah. Take your people to Jabiyah, this area is not suiting your people. They've come from Hijaz, they're not fitting well there. So he was just about to start this process when he got inflicted by the plague, and he passed away, he's buried there, radiyallahu anhu. Mu'adh radiyallahu anhu people were coming and asking him, he said, look, this is a rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the believers, and they will get reward, and those who die in this are going to be shaheed. And he said, oh Allah, if truly I have heard this from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then give me a share and give my family a share from this. Same day he got inflicted by this, started on his finger, and the plague spread through his body. He passed away there, he's buried there close to Amman. So great Sahaba went through this, and they went happily and they went smiling. So what will happen? Inshallah, Allah will protect us. We make dua for afiyah. The command from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to ask Allah for afiyah, which is ease, comfort, health, prosperity, protection from all harm, protection from all diseases. And we should get into the habit of reading those du'as that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us. Inshallah, in the next couple of days, we'll make some material available in which those du'as are mentioned. Du'as for protection, specifically from different kinds of sicknesses and diseases. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and protect our families. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enrich our hearts with iman so that we can face these conditions and come out of them in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een.